Linda, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Melanie. I've been excited to meet you.
Really?
Yes, for
That is
lots of reasons. And foremost, the fact that you're coming to me or coming to all of us from Sydney. Am I
yes.
correct with that? Oh, that's
You
one of
are.
my favorite places in the whole world. So I love you Aussies.
That is so good. Have you visited Australia a lot?
I have been there several times. I'm one of the most blessed people walking, and I lived on a ship called the World for 5 years. And we stopped in Sydney many times. It was one of our favorite ports.
That is great. That is great. What are the other reasons?
Well, the other reasons are that you and I do similar work, or we may approach our goals slightly differently, but we are both here to make this world a better place and to particularly help other women to remember who they are and to never give up their grandeur and to understand how we each have a very important place in this jigsaw puzzle of a world.
We do. Let's explore that right away. It's a powerful message. You are bringing that message to me at a time when I need to hear it. A lot of people need to hear it. And it used to be not so polite to mention age, but part of your message is that you are still going at quite an age, right?
Quite an age. I'm 83 years old. And I am not going to go out easily. I was talking to a wonderful gentleman the other day on a podcast, and I came up with something that I'm going to repeat again, and that is I have no intention of aging gracefully. When my time comes, I will be sliding into home base with a very dirty uniform.
Okay. What does that mean?
What that means is I'm going to experience it all. I'm going to have tried everything. I am not going to leave anything on the table. There will never be words coming out of my mouth that say, I wish I would have when I could have.
I adore that so much. What led you to have this mindset?
Well, I can't really say. I think it's always been the way I've felt, even as a young person. And a lot of people have been interested in how I got to be this 83-year-old who will not take no for an answer. And so I started another reinvention. I started my Substack, excuse me. I started my Substack only 4 weeks ago. And I am using that as a platform to talk about my life story because I have a book in the works, which is going to be released shortly. And for those of you who have pre-ordered, thank you for your patience. I just want to make sure that it's the best I can possibly put out there to you and for you. But it's not about my life story. It's more a chicken soup for the soul, so that every story which is based on a true story actually has a protagonist. And then it's difficult to make change, whether it's good change or not considered good change at the moment. All change is difficult. And so there's a catalyst, something that happens to us or for us that causes us to have the courage to stand up and say, okay, this is the time I'm going to make the change that's going to make the difference. And then the joy that came out of that motion. So that's going to be the book that you're going to see soon, and it's going to be called Next with Linda. But for now, I just wanted to say that even as a child, I really understood the grandeur of what was on the plate in front of me, even in times when things didn't feel that great and that grand. I've always been very spiritual, and I believe that God is good. And I believe that if we play our parts, which only we can do, it will all work out in our favor.
Let's explore that. Spirituality keeps people going and it can shape what you do. What tells you that God is guiding what you are doing? And how does that live out on a normal day?
Well, I think that I make a deal with the higher power every morning when I get out of bed. I first of all promise myself and promise the world that this is going to be a great day. And with that mindset, I set about making that the truth. And so that in itself makes a big difference in the way that you handle things, or the way that I handle things. I should speak for myself. But I really, really don't want to be a waste of space. I want somebody else's life to be better because I was here today. And if I am lucky enough to provide that for somebody, then I consider myself a big success. And so it starts with the promise of a great day, and it ends up with, what did I do today that made the difference?
I appreciate that mindset so much. Do something that makes a difference. I feel that way about the podcast. I saw that you do hypnotherapy. Do you make a difference through that or other things as well?
Well, I tell you, the height of my hypnotherapy success was a number of years ago. I had an office in Beverly Hills, California, and I really was very helpful to many people, but I concentrated at that time on the AIDS community, because going back a number of years, there was a tremendous need among the LGBTQ community to help them deal with and resolve their guilt and fear and shame and all of the negative adjectives that people put upon themselves because they were ill. And once we could bring them to peace with all of that, they were able to respond to the medications that were available. And they looked at life through a completely different lens. So at that time, I really did concentrate on that effort. Although I must say that some of my most interesting hypnosis was past life regressions for those people who believe in that. And one woman who evidently died in her hypnosis, and found herself in a coffin and was afraid that she couldn't get out of the coffin in the end. And so we had all kinds of discussions about that, but she absolutely did beautifully. For one moment, her fear took over, but we managed to get it all under control. I had a woman whose mother, the spirit of her mother was still running her life. And we had to ask the spirit to please go where she belonged, and to allow my client Ashley to live her own life and make her own mistakes, even if her mother felt that that's what they would be. And she was no longer tormented by that voice, the voice inside her head. And I know to some of you it sounds foolish, but if I could just explain hypnotherapy to you in a very common way, for instance, if you are a person who wants to lose weight and you particularly love chocolate cake, and that is your downfall, you will eat chocolate or chocolate cake as often as you can find it. And you in your head have put in your mind that chocolate cake is a friend and it makes me happy and it's a wonderful thing. And I'm always delighted to find it. But you see, if you want to lose weight, the truth of the matter is chocolate cake is your enemy. And therefore, you put it into that column. And none of us want more pain in our lives than we already have. We're all seeking forms of pleasure. And so if you reclassify chocolate cake as your enemy instead of your friend, and instead of thinking about the pleasure you will get from eating it, you instead envision it going right to your thighs or your tummy or wherever it seems to be collecting. And you really lose the desire for it is what happens. So in many instances, it's really sobering people up as to what is a friend and what is a foe, what is worth doing, what is not worth doing, and reminding them of the consequences of their actions. It's a very simple thing.
It sounds like part of hypnotherapy is about reframing the preferences that we have to desire what is actually good for us instead of just what we think we want.
Exactly. Very, very simply put. Thank you for that.
That's an important thing to keep in mind for whichever goal people are reaching. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I would say a while ago, I had an extra focus on food. I still prioritize healthy food, but people thought it was my main message. And I still hope that a lot of people will talk about healthy habits because I see in my surroundings, and it's probably happening near you, people do prefer the unhealthy habits and they don't understand that the healthy things can be fun. I saw near the checkout, there was a $23 box of Krispy Kreme donuts. And I thought people are going to lose money, gain weight all in a few minutes. And people don't think about it. It's placed right near the checkout. Whereas I've been blending my own smoothie bowls for years, no sugar. I wish that everybody would enjoy the healthy habits and also enjoy work. Things like this, making the podcast, it's fun. Do you think that part of what can get someone on track to their success is about enjoying it?
Well, it's really interesting. Of course, the donuts are put right next to the checkout because, of course, that's where temptation lies in a place where you haven't had time to really think about it. You'll just react to your initial reaction to it. And by the time you've come to the place where you say, oh, Melanie, this really isn't good for you. You're already in the car. It's already in the bag and you're on your way home. So, of course, that placement takes advantage of whatever weakness we have toward the instant gratification without ever really taking the time to think about what we're doing. But I heard something interesting not long ago about one of the things that often occurs during aging, whatever that is, and however one defines it, is that more mature people become more interested in labels, not labels of clothing, labels of food. What is actually in this? What exactly I've been told lately that seed oils are horrendous for you. And that now I find myself looking at labels to see if they have seed oils or not. And I find it interesting because never in my life have I ever really thought about labels. I mean, yes, I know that celery and carrots are good for you, and I know that chocolate cake probably is not, but I never took it any further than that. And I don't know whether it's a change in many people's attitudes of late, or whether it's just my age that causes me to care more. I think of Aussies as, beer drinking, barbecuing steaks and, not, and always laughing and happy and not really thinking about ramifications of some of those choices. Do you think that that's true? That some of the consciousness has changed a bit, or maybe not with the young folks, and maybe it's just the more mature people who are feeling that way?
Say there are people who have thought about the choices and those who haven't. When I was growing up, and even I would say 5 or 10 years ago, most people were staying with the norm. And what that manifested as, it still happens. You mentioned the barbecues. What I see the most with barbecues is community fundraisers. So the trend for a long time here has been there are some giant hardware stores and people would put a barbecue there to raise money for a community group or a charity, things like that. Or of course, in the summer, there's more barbecue, but I'd say in general that has led to an emphasis on meat. I'm not going to tell people what they should eat in that regard. I don't eat meat, but I can share with you that when I switched to whole plants, I dropped initially, goodness, more than 10 kilograms. Americans, you can convert it. I can't remember in pounds. But then I wasn't using a scale. I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't trying to lose weight. When I just switched to having more fiber, that changed automatically. A lot of people don't think about that. It's a mix of, yes, perhaps the traditional, we inherited the norm from the English of, say, a chunk of meat and some peas on the side. However, we also inherited the American habit of the ultra processed foods. I can share with you the very first podcast I ever talked on, very surprisingly, wanted to focus on this exact issue. It does happen in a lot of countries. I took for granted that I lost weight by just eating differently. It became eventually 20 kilos. And I can tell you right now, I am more than 25 kilos lighter than what I was a decade ago. I can't even believe it.
Well,
It's
that's
a different.
wonderful.
This
Right. And
jacket,
it wasn't specifically for weight loss. It was just you changed your way about thinking about your food. I mean, and what exactly happened before you actually got this on your plate, and somehow the conscience at some point may kick in.
yes.
And it sounds like that's what happened with you, as opposed to saying, okay, my jeans are so tight. If I don't do something different, I'm going to have to get a new wardrobe. It wasn't about that. It was more about your conscience.
If people are only thinking about the numbers, it will put pressure on them and it doesn't focus on the solution. It focuses on the problem. That's where we are. The diet culture, we can see that in a lot of spaces. We can see that, for example, Oprah got some distance in some way or a bit less involvement from just counting the points in Weight Watchers. And if that works for anyone, that's okay. Counting calories, counting anything, that might work for a bunch of people. But I found just starting off with eating real food. And it's real food is a great starting point. If it's real and has more fiber, for me, that was a great start. I used to get the jar of sauce that would have a lot of sugar in it, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I could share with people later what exactly I switched on, but it was about enjoying it, having fun. For those who follow the blue zones, a lot of those communities that live longer, they enjoy their food. I realize a lot of entrepreneurs get someone else to cook their food, but they still enjoy getting something that's not processed and in a packet. That has been the most simple thing for me.
Yes, I think that that's certainly true. And what you say about people who live in the blue zones, I mean, that's really, really obvious in their culture. And it's had, I don't know whether miraculous is the right word, but certainly astounding results. I mean, the difference in their lifespans, the difference in the quality of their lives, as far as disease and, that sort of thing is concerned. So those folks are all living proof that what you say is true. And they are really reassuring if anyone has any doubts about whether it makes any difference. The answer is an astounding yes, it makes a huge difference.
It does.
I'm fascinated by the fact that you are so heavily influenced by your family and what your parents and grandparents and were all up to a number of years ago. And you've kind of done similar things and put your own flavor on it. And is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
That is so sweet. I can tell you it's very rare that someone asks about family on the show. I can say that the more recent generations had their own path, but my journey with communication, this is actually very sentimental for me. It was my grandparents, and I have to do this in a way that doesn't focus too much on someone else's brand. I can do that. My both of my grandparents on my father's side were involved in a public speaking organization from the early 70s. From what I've read, it was about 1970, give or take. My grandfather became an international director for a not-for-profit in, I'm going to call it the 80s. I'm so used to how I needed to often Google my grandparents to try to get it very spot on. I think it was a few years before I was born. And then in the year before I was born, my grandmother was the first female leader of her community group, of their community group within the state they were living in. That was a precedent that told me a message early on, because she wasn't every woman has a different way of influencing their surroundings. She wasn't burning bras or anything like that, and to each their own, but she was very much creating leadership within the space that she was in and doing it in the style that people expected. What I also learned from her is she was completely focused on other people. She borrowed the phrase caring and sharing. My grandmother, she passed away in 21 at the end of COVID. She had a cancer diagnosis from 2014. But her whole purpose, she was essentially mothering everybody. She just wanted to see everybody else win. That mentality is something that carried me through. The speaking, it was always about presenting ourselves in a way that people can understand. And I learned very early on that if we present ourselves as the person we want to become, then that's a great step in getting the confidence and feeling like the person we want to be, to then feel more comfortable doing what we want to do.
That is really a very important point that you're making, because people ask me all the time, where do you get this confidence that you can just go on a podcast? There's no script. We don't even know what we're going to be talking about. But the one thing that you and I both know is that we will have something of value to share, no matter what the subject is. And that really is because we both have a lot of confidence. So confidence is something, like you said, you don't really need to reinvent the wheel. If there's someone who's already doing what you want to do, follow the recipe. Every great success story leaves you a trail. Remember Hansel and Gretel and how they left the trail of breadcrumbs? Or very fine chefs provide recipes for what they produce. It's just a matter of following what they did. And even if the words that you and I have to impart are slightly different, the actual act of being and being before you physically are, because we create our own reality. And I know that that makes some people very angry because they don't like what's going on in their lives right now, and they refuse to take responsibility for having created it. But that is the truth. We are all the ones who are writing our next chapter. That's how I came up with Next with Linda, because my goal is to help everybody, guide everybody to creating the best chapter yet that they've experienced in their lives. And it's all a matter of your belief system. When you believe, you will receive. And that is short, but very powerful. Because if you really believe something, it actually feels as though it exists already, and you behave in that manner. It is very comfortable coming on in because you've extended an invitation. You've already shown how it works. And you can call it the good Lord. You can call it luck. You can call it whatever you like. But I think that you need to prepare yourself for a lot of synchronicities, a lot of miracles. To all of a sudden the phone rings and it's like, well, how could that have happened? How interesting. Or you're introduced to somebody that 10 minutes ago you weren't even thinking would be in your orbit. And yet here they are. Why? Because you believed. You believed in yourself. You believed in your situation that, you were meant to have this life that you not only desire, but deserve. And once you believe that, oh my goodness, how quickly it all comes together. So the situation is to really, really believe that you deserve all that you desire. And for some people, that's a difficult thing to understand, but it is really the truth.
Belief shapes what we do. I'm wondering whether you had external influences that shaped your beliefs and whether you encourage people to look for something or someone around them to shape their beliefs. I ask that because I know it was easier for me to believe I could be something when I was sitting next to my grandparents back when both were around. One is now, and it's harder now not having someone right next to me saying, you are this, you're going to be that. It's a bit harder. Do you find that other people need to surround themselves with like-minded people? Do they need to just create the mindset if they're not in an environment that encourages what they need? How can people manufacture the belief?
I do believe that one needs to surround themselves with very positive people and people who believe the same way that you do about things that are important to you, and who themselves demonstrate the power of belief, that they in turn believe in themselves, and that you can see for yourself how that works. The same way as we talk about the people who live in the blue zones, and they're very positive proof that what they say about certain food types and overprocessed foods and all of the things that we were talking about, eliminating those from your diet, create a certain result. So again, surrounding yourself by people who are already proven. They began their journey believing that they could make it, and believed it to the point where they began acting as if. And the joy that comes into you when you act as if you have something that you really, really want, it produces all of the same hormones and brain waves that would actually be there and will be there when this physically happens. And so you get the same joy and you start attracting like-minded people. You start attracting the opportunities that will allow you to get to that point because you're really already there. You've developed the cake, and what's going to happen next is just the frosting.
That's a beautiful way to put it, the cake and the frosting. I'm wondering, is part of it about people going beyond saying, I will do this or I will pursue this, to then also saying, I was this and I am this now? I know the I am phrase is a very deliberate choice of words, but does that help people?
Absolutely. I am is maybe the two most powerful words I can think of that really take us all where we want to go, because we are already that. It's just a matter of remembering and being open to anything that we may be afraid of, overcoming fear, that sort of thing. But it's also a matter of staying in the present. Some people really become crippled by their fear of the future or by their history. If they've had a failed marriage, for instance, they may be afraid to let somebody else become intimate with them because they're afraid, again, of it not working. And do you want to get some? You want to get some water, love?
I'm okay. I have a water here. I just felt so emotional hearing you talk about people not wanting to be loved again. I think what you're talking about is so powerful.
Well, it is, and again, I like to use metaphors because it's easier for people to understand. But if we were driving a car, there are certain things that happened in our lives that we need to put in the rearview mirror. You will never forget the fact that you went into a relationship with a dream that it would be everything you wanted it to be, that it would be for the rest of your life. Nobody goes into a marriage thinking it's going to fail. And so when it does happen, even if it's for the best sometimes, for all involved, it just didn't go the way you'd planned and the way you thought it would. And so that in itself, you lose trust in your decisions, or you think, you really thought that you knew that somebody was a good person, and then later you discovered your error. But if we can take those situations and put them in the rearview mirror, not forget them because we never will, but just put them in their place and not spend too much time worrying about the future. Well, if I make this decision, where is it going to take me? What's going to happen then? That's a complete waste of time and energy because nobody knows. We don't have all the pieces yet. And so the only thing we know for sure is that we're here, you and I, Melanie, right now, and we're having this conversation. And if you can put most of your eggs in that basket, staying in the today, staying in the present without fear of the future and without the guilt and the fear of a repeat performance of things that have happened in the past, and just remember that at this very moment, everything's perfect. You don't need to put your energy into something that you don't know anything about, which is the future, or to waste it on something that no longer exists. So I think if you can eliminate those two wasteful situations where we're wasting our time and our energy, our two most precious resources, by the way, you'll find you have a lot more power to attract that which is what you really want, that is today.
Attract what you really want. There is so much in this. What experiences did you have with relationships that wound up, any sorts of relationships where you needed to put them in the rearview mirror?
Well, I think any failed relationship, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a marriage. Sometimes it's a relationship with another woman, with a relative of somebody in your family, or someone who you allowed to be your teacher, or whatever it is. It's any failed relationship. But for any of you who know me, and I'm Linda with Next with Linda, I have talked a lot about my value being the 83 years I've been alive. And so I don't teach from a textbook. I teach from life and from life's experience. And again, I'm living proof that what I say is true because here I am. So I have had 4 marriages and 4 divorces. I am not proud of that. It took me a long time to figure out I didn't have to marry every person I loved because I love everybody. And so I would see God's in everybody's eyes and think, oh my God, this is the most wonderful person I've ever met. I want to be with them for the rest of my life. And then recall that, oh, I think we forgot to talk about if we both wanted to have children. Or I think we didn't talk about the fact that, politically we don't see eye to eye, and that's a very important thing to one of us. You don't talk about what are your ethics? What are your goals? What does the future hold for you in your imagination? And see how those things measure up. Because the lust and the excitement of the beginning of finding something new and someone looking at you with those dreamy eyes and all of that is wonderful. I mean, there is no price tag for it, but it doesn't always last that way. So after the kind of shine and glimmer have worn off a little, there needs to be something basic that holds the two of you together. And I really think that in my case, it took me a long time. And part of what I try to teach is for other women to not make the same mistakes I did. And in some cases, not to hang around longer than you know makes sense because you want so desperately to find a way to make it work. Some just can't work. And you have to have the courage to just fold up your cards and walk away. And I must say, not in every case, but in most of the cases with me, I still love the people that I was married to, but we shouldn't be married. I mean, we can love each other from a distance. We can love each other as friends. We can love each other in a support system sort of way. But marriage is a different thing. And having children together is a different thing. And so I don't know if that was the sort of answer you were looking for, but
Yes, absolutely. It really was.
that really has been my experience. And I think that anyone who is contemplating getting married or being in a situation that you would like to see be a lifelong commitment, there needs to be some serious thinking about all the other subjects that I just listed, and not just the lust or the wanting to fix somebody. I know if I love him enough, he'll stop drinking. I know if I love him enough, he'll feel better about himself and he'll be able to hold down a job or whatever the situation is. We women seem to want to caretake, and we've been raised in many cases to believe that to be our jobs, and our place in life is to take care of others, which, by the way, is one of the reasons that so many autoimmune diseases are experienced by women, because we completely debilitate ourselves and put ourselves on a back burner while we take care of everybody else. And reclaiming our worth and saying the next to-do list that you put together, all these things that you need to do and need to take care of, put yourself at the top of the list. What a concept.
It is. It is. There is so much in all of this. I'm glad that you shared this much. It feels very relevant to me, and I want to frame this in a way that any listener can relate to. You have been married 4 times. I have been married twice, and recently someone said they wanted to get married and then changed their mind. So that feels like a third thing. I'm 37. You're 84. I'm wondering, how old were you when your relationships?
Oh, goodness, I'm terrible with numbers, but they were when I was young. The first time when I was 19, that's very young, and especially by today's standards. And that was very short lived, only 2 years. And then I married again before I really even knew who I was as a woman, and how I wanted to live my life and what was important to me. So part of it is, I guess you could blame on youth, although it certainly was more than that. And we all have wounds, and wounds that we try to heal from our childhoods, that we try to heal with a new relationship. And it isn't fair to thrust that responsibility onto another person, because healing happens from within, not from without. And so when you marry at a very young age, your ideas would tend to change. And so you're at a bit of a disadvantage. Although I must say there are so many high school sweethearts who have been married for 50 years and, are completely head over heels in love today. So you can't generalize ever about anything. But in my case, it was the truth. And I don't know about you. What about your case?
My situation, I was very young for the first one, sort of like you, got together around age 19, and then there was a wedding when I was 20. Then that person went away with someone younger when I was
Yeah, younger
21.
than you? Oh my goodness.
Yes, I mean, I I actually got more involved in what my grandparents do because it was something to focus my attention on after the first time I was dumped, which happened after the first time I was married.
Oh my.
I know, I
That's
know.
amazing.
That's
But you see what a gift it was. Do you see what a gift it was? Melanie, if you had not had the wound to heal, you may never have been driven to share your gift and to do the work that you do, because that was all part of your healing back in the day.
the presenting was a part of the healing. That's an interesting perspective. I would say that the gift that I was given in that one was that I grew up very religious, and being divorced at a young age, it meant I was never going to fit the mold. I wasn't thinking about husband number 2 when I was 22. I just wasn't. So I needed a version of uh, my view for life that still ideally would be ethical and admirable, but not perhaps as traditional. Some of my friends were having their first wedding when I was having my first divorce. So
Um,
that shaped a lot. It shaped how I view religion quite a bit. And then I can't say a lot about the second time, but I can say that I was a bit too open to relationships around the time when my grandmother got diagnosed with cancer. I think because she had nurtured me so much. I I can look back now and see I always wanted to, for a long time, be in someone's shadow or be nurtured by someone because I didn't know how to nurture myself. So it's very easy to look back at these things, right?
Hindsight is just golden, absolutely. But the most important love of all. Yes, you had great love for your grandmother. I hear that in everything you say. The greatest love, of course, is the one that you need to have for yourself. And really, what you're telling me is that you needed to fall in love with the person that you were back in those days. And you needed to respect yourself. You needed to realize your worth. And those were the things you were working on developing as part of your healing.
It's about
So
an independence, because even you're not married now, right? You had
that's
four,
correct.
yes, you had 4 divorces. So you have an independence where you're confident and you have your personal brand, you are living your life, and you don't feel a need to be in a marriage to do that.
That's true. But I also believe that no man or woman is an island, and none of us were meant, in my mind, to be alone, that sharing anything with a loving partner, whether it's a glass of wine, a sunset, or a lifetime, is the ultimate joy and the ultimate gift and the ultimate ideal for most people. Now, not everybody, but that doesn't mean you have to give up who you are. That relationship should not require that you give up your own independence and that you give up who you are and how you operate to humor somebody else or make them feel better. So you play small and don't show how clever you are to make them feel better about themselves. I'm not talking about that sort of thing. I'm talking about a healthy, respectful, and loving relationship. I still think is the ultimate. Certainly my ultimate goal, even though I am not in that situation at the moment. But, I say the last time I fell in love was when I was 80, and we had a fabulous, fabulous love affair. He was 90. Actually, he was 87, and I was 80. And we met and fell in love and had the most wonderful time. And I say the last time I fell in love, but I have to correct myself. That was the last time I fell in love, but not the last time I'm going to fall in love, because I haven't given up on that part of my life yet. I still think that there is somebody out there for me. There's somebody out there for you who's looking for exactly the person that you are. Not that you have to pretend to be something different, not that you have to be thinner or smarter or more accomplished or more of anything, because you're already enough. And so am I. But we're not going to give up our independence. But that doesn't mean we can't love, have passion for in all of its forms. Um, a partner can bring passion back into our lives, that not just in a physical way, but just the passion for living and the passion for having a purpose. And it's just, again, going back to the cake. You're finding a way to bake your own cake, baby. You go out there and you speak and you share and you do mastermind classes and you teach by example and you do all of these wonderful things. I have my own way of doing it with my reels. I've developed 2 workbooks, which are digital workbooks, Next with Linda. And they really, really help people resolve a lot of issues that they have in their lives. And I'm writing this book, Next with Linda, to, again, show living proof of people who've had similar problems to other women who'll be reading it. And my real hope is that everybody reading it will say, oh my gosh, That's exactly what happened to me. Or that's exactly how I felt. And look at her now. She had the courage to make that change. Sometimes it's just a little tweak in our behaviors. I'm not saying take your whole 40 years or however old you are and throw it in the trash. I'm saying those are all valuable lessons we take with us as we move forward. So we're never starting completely over. We're starting from experience, which is a wonderful place to begin anything. So I wish for everybody, for you, for me, for all of our followers and listeners, that they find passion. Where there is a spark, we can help create a bonfire. And that is what life is really all about, is finding ways to take something small that's wonderful and make it even better. And in that way,
You went on mute suddenly. Now I can hear something. Linda? Oh, that's what happened. It's so tricky when,
Mhm.
yeah, the phone
Okay.
calls come through the computers and it messes everything up, right?
I know. And I had it on whatever it is with the sound X'd out so that it wouldn't ring. And what did it do? It rang. Mm.
But you are so inspiring. I had seen just a bit about what you do. I saw that your website mentioned becoming who we want to be and the hypnotherapy, things like that. But knowing your personal journey, this is what I love doing on the podcast. Seeing your personal journey that you've had in your 84 years. I know that you see the value in this, but I wanted to emphasize it. People feel old at any age when they don't need to. And I can share with you that I've felt that way, and I know that others would as well. I don't like the stigma that I perceive on the inside that I'm 37. And I can share with you, I absolutely think to myself, I should have done this before 37, whatever, or I should be
Mhm.
this now at this age. But you're 84. I'm realizing it will be a long time before I reach the age that you are. There'll be someone
Yes.
listening who is 40 something, 20 something, anything. When did you reach this personal brand and this confidence? Was it always here, or was there an age where you realized, let's just be this and do what feels right?
I think I've always had it. I wish I could say something different, but it wouldn't be true. It's because I look at life as a huge lesson. There's always something to learn from each other, about ourselves. And each lesson that we learn brings us closer to really being able to feel joy and to feel that we are on the right path, that we're doing what we were sent here to do. And certainly you have found yours for now. You may want to tweak it when you get to be closer to my age. I've only been doing this since October of last year. I've never watched anybody's podcast before I did one. I just have always relied on having the confidence to know that I've got friends in high places and those spirits don't let me down. I'm here to do God's work and I will be given the words. I will always have this friend that you talk about, that you like to have people surrounding you who kind of shore you up if you start to get a little, iffy. Um, Mine are in the spirit world. And I know that there are a lot of people listening who are going to go, oh my gosh, here she goes. But it's really the truth for me. And, we all need to find our own paths. But I believe that I'm here for a reason. I have words to share, which is why I'm given the energy and the ability to be able to do it. And I'm going to do it until I slide into home base, when I'm called back home. So it's really been a pleasure to be with you today, Melanie. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed getting to know you. And here we are, you in Sydney, and I'm in Connecticut right now visiting my family, but I'm from California. And here you are in your late 30s and me in my 80s. And yet I know you can feel, because I felt, the kinship and how much we think the same. And you haven't had as many experiences I have, obviously.
Half the
But
divorces.
yes, but it's been, you know, not as dissimilar as one would expect under the circumstances. And I'm very grateful. I love it when I find someone else who's on the same page that I am. And again, it reassures me. It reassures me that somebody like you, who could be doing anything you wanted, would pick this path and decide that this was your way to make a contribution. Because it just says, see, Linda, you're not crazy. There are other people like you who really do understand what I'm trying to say and don't disagree. And we all have different paths of, getting to where we're going, but we have a lot in common.
We do. It sounds like you're a bit new to podcasting, and especially talking with someone who is elsewhere. You're experiencing the magic of this podcast that I believe it came from something beyond me. I have to. Most of the guests are from America. A bunch of them have been from Australia or sometimes Europe. But we're from anywhere, all different ages. You and I have such an age gap, but we have so much common ground. And that's part of the magic of these conversations, is that we see our experiences in each other so much. That's encouraging.
And it's a validation. Absolutely. And at 83, I still need it. And it
Yeah.
still brings me joy. Yes. I like to know that somebody else has made the same choices that I have. And you have made some of the same choices I have in your own flavor. I'm just delighted that we both are doing the work we're doing. And we're both about making this world a better place. And I've told my children over and over again that I see myself as the salve on other people's wounds, that my joy comes from making your fear and sorrow less, by feeling that you have a kindred spirit who has survived that which you fear will destroy you. And I'm here to say, baloney. That's stinking thinking. We're all here to love and be loved, and to spread hope and joy. And you've been a vehicle for me today to do exactly that. So thank you so much for inviting me on your show. And I'm going to follow you and follow your progress. And I wish you all the best. And for any of you who are listening, I'm Linda, Next with Linda, and you can find me on your favorite platform. And I post every day. And I just started a new Substack that will be telling my life story. So for any of you who'd like to know more about me, or to receive one of the love notes that I write daily, especially to you, I would love to get to know you better. And Melanie, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, so much. You said that you have friends in high places. You said that spiritually, but
Yes.
you are now also a part of this community as well. I'm going to encourage people to get connected more officially in this community, but you are one of about, at this point, 95 episodes. I would say you're one of at least 80 guests who have been on the show. And we have people following this journey from anywhere in the world, different countries, different types of success, who are going to be seeing that you are putting a message out there that people need to hear. I appreciate what you are doing so much. I appreciate your time, and it has been just such a joy. It has been a great joy talking with you. Thanks.
Thank you so very much, and look forward to us staying in touch.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie.